Hi, Shane. Thank you so much for joining me today on Inside the Industry. I'm so excited to have you.
Rachel, it's so good to see you. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, it's my
absolutely.
pleasure. You are actually my first photographer.
Really? How
Yes.
has that happened?
I don't know yet, but people are like, get some photographers on there. And I'm like, I know I must, because it's our relationship as a makeup artist and you being a photographer is really crucial, especially in the fashion and beauty world. It can be like make or break, especially when you're not working with somebody that you might not creatively align with or the visions aren't there. And that's something I see a lot in your work, that you're very adamant and vocal about, that having that communication and that similar vision and alignment is super important.
Well, I think it's important, especially in a framework of artistry where you have to work together. I mean, it's
Yes,
not like we're making a painting and you can imagine anything you want to, and then
right.
you can make it a reality. There's always an element of teamwork and vision in
Always,
there.
always. I know, and that's actually one of my, I actually like that segue because we're talking about that. As creatives, I think, I know myself, there are times in my life where I'm like, I am stubborn as hell. I can get stuck on a vision, stuck on me knowing how I want to create something, and I've imagined it for maybe weeks on end, and then I gather my team together, and it can change on set in a moment's notice. Like you can be so
Yeah.
stuck on something you want, and then just when you get that group of people and how whether the energy is on that day, how the model's receiving it, how the light, like it almost becomes something that's so organic, which I think is lovely. But is that something that you ever differ between? It's just kind of going with the flow, or do you have a really set in stone prep process for each shoot?
Well, I think there's kind of a few things in there to dive into.
Yes.
I'm gonna start, I think, with just the general creative process to kind of set the tone, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm very adamant on being in that moment because, like you were saying, there's so many things. There's lighting, there's mood of the model, there's so many things, and you have to be really adaptable
Yeah.
because in the end of the day, you want good images, and if you get bad images, sort of in your very stubborn creative vision, it's
Right.
not worth it to me. I mean, I've made mood boards so many times where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this and this, and then I
I
get
get
in the moment and it's gone.
it. Mm-hmm.
But the way I like to view it, I like to view it as the talent or whoever the subject is.
Mm-hmm.
If they're a character, for example, that's how I think of them as a character and how would they interact in the situation. And I think if you kind of relax it down to that standpoint instead of being super set on a creative vision,
Right.
um,
For the
there's lots
person.
more opportunity. You have to be in you have to be in the moment
Yep.
to create. I think, especially when you're working with other people, you have to compromise, and that kind of goes into as well. You were saying, well, what if I really want to do this one thing and someone else doesn't? If that happens, and I'm really like, I want to photograph this dress,
I just know.
I'll be like, I'll be like, if someone's against it, be like, oh yeah, we can shoot that one too. It's better to have options, and then I'll do it, and then maybe I'll push for something because I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe this other person is right. And
100%.
the thing is, especially when you're set, you have to really control your ego because you have to remember, especially if you have a good team, um, they know what they're doing too.
Right? You just
So
trust them.
like,
You just know they're gonna pull together and do what you need, right? In that sense.
yeah, I was doing one shoot in Italy. I was there for the first time, and my friend connected me with someone on Instagram for this influencer, and we did it, and we met at her house, and we were starting to go through the clothes, and we had a couple of options for shoes or whatever, and the makeup artist was like, I like these, and I looked at the shoes, I'm like,
I hate them.
yeah, they were like these cheetah
Beautiful.
print like loafer things,
Oh
and
no.
my knee jerk reaction was like, I hate this.
Right.
The other option was like a cheetah print heel or something. I don't remember. But yeah, I was like, you know what? Like, we'll go with it. Let's do the weird loafer. I don't
Yeah.
particularly
Mm-hmm.
um like, and you have to remember, especially when you're working with people from different backgrounds and cultures and all these things. I always try to make an international team if I can. I don't like
Yes.
people to have the same viewpoint.
Yep.
But they see things differently, and
Sure.
they're just how they were, raised, what they've seen in their life. maybe it informs a different aesthetic I couldn't
Beauty
even
around the world,
comprehend.
it's all different standards. So it is hard when you get in a room, you got to kind of marry all of those respectfully as best we can.
No, exactly. So I ended up with that, going with it, and I was pleasantly surprised because the the trench coat was like it was a beige top,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bottom was like a lighter beige, and it was like cut in half, kind of. I don't know if it was McQueen, but it was sort of that vibe with these like cheetah loafers, and it worked really well.
You're
We
like,
took some
okay.
pictures on the
And that's what
tram.
I'm saying. There is sometimes where we can be so meticulous. And like you said, the more organic, the more you just naturally open up, throw that ego to the side, still keeping your intuition, still keeping you still are in that realm. You're still the photographer, the makeup artist. We still know our skill set. We're there with an expertise that we're offering on set. So that being said, we still do know what we're talking about, but it's learning and trusting that those other people
Yeah.
they're
I
talking
mean,
about.
I think it's interesting too because, oh, sorry,
No?
a lot of the time the photographer has, at least in set culture now,
Mm-hmm.
is like the boss almost.
I know.
Like, um, I mean, that's very flattering. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you. That's a good segue because I was
But
like, do you think? Yeah, right.
it's
You
flattering,
are.
but also like you shouldn't feel like you're less than, like you're an artist as well. I was on a shoot with a makeup artist friend of mine. I don't know if they want me to share the name, so I won't. But they did the most beautiful makeup. Like it was so intense. I was like, wow, like I don't have to do so much work to photograph it because if I do too much, it'll just look jumbled. Like this is amazing. So I was asking his opinion about something. He's like, "Oh, you're the photographer, you're the artist," and I was like, "Wait, pause.
Like, whoa, whoa.
Look at the. I didn't do this. If you
Right.
asked me to paint this, it would look like a child
That's a valid point.
drew it
It's
on. But I mean, I think there should be more value in there. Like, yes, you're an artist. You can have a vision as well.
Mhm.
Um, but again, if you have a good team, it's kind of easy to marry those together. I mean, I've had horrible experiences too, where someone's canceled on me last minute, and then I need to find
Oh yeah, no, those are the
another,
worst days.
and then it was horrible. The makeup and hair artist like teamed up on me and the stylist, and there's like this like Cold War thing going on. It
No,
was, I mean, that happens, but I
it
try
does.
to curate as much as I can to make sure
I
everyone.
love it. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because like those situations, it's a really good thing you bring up because a lot of the times, as much as and that's another question I have for you is if you do have a core team or people, but going into that, we're in a world where so many times we're thrown on set and you're the new kid on the block. You have to jump into a maybe already existing team, and then you have to kind of ease in, kiki with the model, understand and vibe out with the photographer and get your vision across, understand their visions. And it can
Hmm.
be really hard sometimes where it's not a fit. And then you're kind of in a situation where you just have to make the best of it. And then other times you're thrown in and you make magic. Is it for you? Do you ever, now that being said, do you stay with a core amount of people or do you ever differ? You like to switch it up because it keeps it just generating new voices, new, techniques, new styles. Does that keep you going? Or do you like to be like, hey, this person is amazing and I want to keep building with them. This is something that I align with. These are my people.
I mean, I'd say I do kind of a mixture of both.
Sure.
It depends who I mean, because sometimes you're not in charge.
Right.
Like especially if it's commercial, sometimes the client knows who they want, and
Oh, yes.
that's great. And sometimes you make great people there. Sometimes you don't get along so well. It doesn't you make it work.
Right.
But I'd say generally on like creative projects, I'm very aware. I mean, I have different friends who someone does this better, someone does this better, and depending on the direction of the shoot, maybe I
You call them on.
go with
They're a
yeah.
good person. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, in my career so far, I've traveled so much, it's kind of hard to keep a handle on everyone. Everyone's so busy these days.
Right.
So
Get what you
I'm always in the
get.
process of finding new people, but it's honestly the energy between, I always like to meet people before. I never like to
Oof, I agree. Oh my
go
God.
on set because if I don't, if you're being like shady or something,
It
I'm not
can't.
here for that.
So many people don't realize that too. I'm like, you can, because I've looked at as a makeup artist standpoint, I'll look at some makeup artists that I'm like, their work is to die for. To die for the technique, the application, the whatever. The skill is so profound. Yet then when I'm with them, I'm like, oh my God, we don't align. Like your work is phenomenal and I'll never take that away from them. But as a creative creating with them, it might not be a fit. It's the same thing with clients and teams, like we're saying. I think people have to realize that in this industry, it's a lot of personality. You mentioned a lot of networking, even as far as when you're doing your job, there's a lot of on-set work. And then there's the outside work. And a lot of the base of that is building that network of people, learning where you align, learning where and who is maybe not going to be for you and who's going to be for you, and kind of being okay to let people go and also invite the people in constantly.
I mean, I think being genuine, at least for me, is the like key piece.
Yep.
Like, there's so many people that just want you for something.
Yep.
Like, I work as a producer as well, and I guess in the minds of people, producer means you're gonna get me jobs, which maybe sometimes that's true, but that's not always true.
No,
You think I have control? Like, a lot of the time, it's the client. The client says, "I want that." Okay, we work for you. Of course, it doesn't mean I get to choose everything, but some people, I've worked with people before. They're like very cheery on set. I'm like, okay, and then they ask for go out for a drink or something, you know, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, sure. And then like 20 minutes into the drink, they're like, oh, what have you been working on? I say, they're like, oh, why didn't you cast me for that?
I just met you.
Exactly. Like, is that how that works?
A lot of ode egos. But again, the thing people don't realize about that exact energy, the same thing that you're saying.
That's like almost like a blacklist.
Right.
Like, I don't want that energy.
Nope, you don't want that energy. And it's something that I don't think people you can smell it a mile away. You know when somebody's being authentic and when it's genuinely there and you're just kind of almost like, wow, we click, or somebody really has, like you're saying, ulterior motives and it's just fake. And that's not going to get you far. I think that's for professionals across the board in our industry. You network, but just know that not everyone's going to be for you, and move as authentic and true to yourself as you can, pretty much at all times. I know networking hasn't really been a part of our like most recent future over the last couple months being in quarantine. Not like something we're out kicking, having a good time, meeting all these new creatives for the summer and what we probably all had planned for 2020 of what we wanted to build in our portfolios and work. But that being said, I feel like I've seen a surge of huge creativity online that I never would have imagined would even be possible. I'm also just not a very big tech person, so that's not something within. I know you have a history of graphic design and other things like that. This is not my world, honey. That is all you. I can't, woo, not for me. But the people that can, have you taken this time to either start fine-tuning more crafts, or even with your photography? Are you doing any sort of FaceTime photo shoots that we've been seeing a lot of?
I've considered doing a couple of FaceTime shoots, but I never really made it happen.
I hear you.
I don't shame them or anything. It's great. Like, I've seen some like really amazing, stellar work, and I applaud that. But for me, like, I just have been focused on other things. Really, I've taken a few self-portraits, which is fun. Just trying to learn. Because here's the thing, especially as a photographer, you need to be good at posing. Like, I don't know. If you just expect the model to know what to do. I mean, some models are great, but some need a little direction.
You need a little bit more hands-on. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, so I always try to, you know, reflect that, and I mean, not that this is exclusive to quarantine, but I do yoga, and I have a good friend that's like, she trains me. She's like so aware of like body movements and stuff, and that's helped me a whole bunch. She'll be like, even like through the webcam we've been doing on quarantine, she'll be like, hip move it back, it's wrong. I'm like, oh, she's not that aggressive. I'm just being blunt. But that helps on set too. I'm like, what's wrong with this? Something's wrong. I'm like, oh, try drawing your shoulders back. It's so much better. But
now you got me being paranoid. I'm like, oh no, he's gonna.
Oh no, I have dreadful posture. Don't look at me. But it's good to know that. But in terms of, I've really been focused a lot on business development side of things during this, because it's a very overlooked part of the creative. I mean, maybe if you have an agent, then it's a different story.
But people don't tell you that. They do not tell you that. Getting in as a creative, as a photographer, makeup artist, model, I've no doubt it is a business. You're stepping into a business,
difficult.
Become a brand. And it's very hard. It's like learning, like we didn't know about taxes, you know, in high school or college. Why didn't they teach this? Because we needed that. Same thing. I'm like, I did not know I needed to know all these things to start a business and maintain it, invoice and catch up. It's hard. On your standpoint, what are the key things, I guess, that you've been looking at and realize are of importance?
I mean, obviously, considering the whole pandemic situation, income is like a huge topic for a lot of artists. Thankfully, though, I was quite proactive, and I think I'm in a better place than a lot of
Good.
people are. But I only credit that to mistakes I've made in the past. So,
Right.
and
Always learning. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but I know I kind of tried to prep for that and been as proactive as I can. But of course, it affects everyone. So I was definitely effective, but I think I was a little bit more like prepared, which was great.
Ready to
But
go. Can sit for a couple months without. Yeah. No, I hear that.
yeah, but in terms of just day-to-day business, I mean, just branding yourself. Like if anyone listening is just like starting out or something,
Mm-hmm.
it's really difficult to draw that line between your artist self and your person self. And
Yep.
it's not to say you're being ingenuine, it's just to say you want to sell your artwork. You can't just throw up on it, so that's gross. So you
No, no,
can't
I
just
love it.
like explode on everyone everything about you because
No.
clients don't care. You have to like highlight, boop, 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 this is whatever.
No.
But so there's a lot of that work too that I think people don't.
Which is such a weird narrative that we've been built off of, always the struggling artist, or I just want to be about my art and I just want to create what I love and that's that and that will be enough. And unfortunately, even though I'm one of those creative heads where I'm like, I just want to create and I don't want boundaries and I want to just do what I need to do, it gets you so far because you need to be able to be marketable. And listening to some of your videos and intakes and advice that you've had just being a photographer yourself and working in the business, you have to know your market and
Mm-hmm.
you have to know what kind of work you want to do, things you want to do, how to present yourself to get the paid work, to not let this be a hobby where, yes, you're creating and it's fun, it's amazing. I also want to make income and I want to live off of this hobby. It's my career now. It's not just something I do on the side where I can free ball and do test shoots and create whatever I want with no boundaries. It's not that the boundaries are bad to have. Sometimes it's great and it pushes you even farther than you think because now you have these guidelines that you have to work with and create within those guidelines. And that's still a challenge for whatever companies and such. As a photographer, I feel like though, um, when you're being creative, is it just simply based off the client? Like you're working with, okay, I got booked with Target. So now just in my portfolio, am I going to create a section that's marketable to them and just show them that? Or am I just going to free willy go, this is the type of photographer I am, and I'm going to let the companies that seek what I have to offer, I want them to come to me. I guess it's like it's a hard thing to
Kind
kind
of
of,
both. I mean,
right?
because for example, I don't want to say shooting any job is easy because there's always a set of challenges. But I mean, if it's like e-commerce, it's a lot more simple than doing
Mm-hmm.
a campaign for fashion because there's so many.
Right.
If e-commerce is typically white background, simple lighting setup, boop boop
There's
boop,
like
it
standard.
probably pays more.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
whereas
so weirdly too. The least
because I don't want to put down any brands or anything in specific, but it can what you were discussing before in terms of making money. I would dare to say some brands and magazines, etc., are a bit predatory.
Yep.
I mean, that's too harsh of a word, but I'm going to use
Yeah.
predatory in terms of people want the name in their book, therefore we can
Right.
downgrade the rate or
Sure.
etc., which isn't great. I mean, I know
I
people
don't
have
fully.
budgets and there's always a reason for it, but I mean,
Right. Right.
it's a difficult little dance you have to do.
It is.
You have to be confident, but you can't be ego. You have to be
Mhm.
good at what you do. You have to
Right.
sell the vision even if you're not 100% sure of it.
Right. Right. I know. I know.
Like,
And it is hard stepping in, knowing your worth, and then but wanting that opportunity. I always look at that. I'm like, God, I know I'm worth this, and maybe they're offering this, but I really want to work with these said people or that said opportunity. And it's like I've talked about a lot of makeup artist friends. It's a lot of weighing game. I think living in the industry that we're in, it's nothing's ever set in stone. People ask me, what's your rates? And I said, I don't ever have a set rate. I said it varies all the time due to situations and circumstances and timing and
yeah,
company. It's a very fluid environment that we're working in. You just gotta be really open and
yeah.
receptive and
I mean,
just
it's really interesting. I don't know if you've like been around like in terms of different countries much, but it's really interesting to see how they operate differently. New York is a lot more like up, up, up,
oh yeah, they're fast.
whereas and it's just a lot more like you have to play the rules, I
Yeah,
would say. But
unfortunately.
if you go to like Paris or Italy, I don't want to say London, but Europe, I suppose, it's more like, oh, I like this. I have this job. you're a friend and you can do it and it's great, and then suddenly you're on like a big set and it's like, what
Right.
happened? It was
Right.
like, but here it's a lot more like play by the rules, because there's I
Get
found,
it where you fit in. Yeah.
as yeah, I mean, as companies get bigger and stuff, of course it's going to change. In New York, lots of people to, there's the client, then there's probably creative agency, and there's probably like an art director, creative director, and like 5 people there.
Yep.
So then you have to get approval of all these people, and it's just a
A lot of
whole,
heads, a lot of
yeah.
eyes approving. Yeah. Right.
So it's tricky in this way too. But still that kind of nepotism does come in.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just more complicated in New York. If you go other places, it's a little bit easier to navigate, I would think. But
I agree.
you have to be really versatile, like you were saying. I think.
Always, always. I mean, going to Inspire, I know you have traveled quite a bit, and I'm actually really impressed that you grew up in the Midwest. I don't know exactly where, so please tell us, where exactly in the Midwest did you grow up?
So I grew up in Kansas City,
Yeah.
a suburb. So Kansas City is great. It's like a 20-minute drive from where I lived.
Yeah.
But I lived, it was, okay, when I was a child,
Hmm.
I lived right by a creek, like literally the backyard was this creek.
I love it.
And it was, I go adventure in it all the time, blah, blah, blah. But then the neighborhood got not so safe.
Hmm.
So we decided to move. Well, I
Sure.
was like 7. I didn't decide anything. But
I just went
um,
with it. Yeah.
yeah, but we moved to another suburb that was very like cookie cutter suburban, like blah. Um, and that was kind of my experience growing up. And then I went to school in Nebraska, so not much
My
better.
God.
Actually, a lot
What?
more fun.
Yes. Yes. That's why I'm
But,
like, wow, you're very like open, creative. I've looked at your work and I am inspired. That's why I'm like, how these gems, I wouldn't assume you grew up in the Midwest. You're very versed and you're very cultural as far as like your imagery and things you do. I was like, wait a whole minute. It's almost like kind of how the world is telling us to unlearn a lot of things right now. I was like, you really just had it within you as far as inspiration and understanding. Like you knew and you took
yeah,
it.
I kind of, I don't want to like sound like I'm the like have ego or anything, because I don't view it this way. But like even when I was in the Midwest, I was very much like I didn't feel
Oh
that
no,
energy. You know what I mean? Like I
it's
just,
about
like half the people I was talking to, I'm like, why do you think like this? Why
Right,
are you?
right.
Why?
It's
Why?
it's beautiful.
I just don't comprehend.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
Hmm.
But I mean, I definitely draw inspiration from like, I really, it's maybe it's bad. I've heard like conflicting reports that nostalgia is like a drug that you shouldn't indulge in.
Really, oh,
Um,
I'm screwed then because I'm
yeah.
I'm very nostalgic.
No, no,
Oh
me
my
too. I
God.
mean, I could, looking back, I can literally like categorize my life into like probably 3 or 4
Yeah,
different eras.
for sure.
And they all have like their own specific soundtrack to them. And like if you
Yep.
go through my Spotify, I have like one playlist that if you scroll through, it's like, oh, that's one. Oh, there's
Oh,
a soundtrack
there
to,
I am. K through 12.
yeah.
There I am. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
but I mean, depending on the project, sometimes my mind will like
Mhm.
jump back to these different experiences and
Yeah.
pull something. I mean, I can find inspiration from a shoot from like the tiniest detail, and then I kind of build this world around it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was doing a friend with my good friend. Her name's Nicola. She's from Australia. We met in London, but we've met each other in like 4 different countries or
Oh my God.
something
It's meant to
ridiculous.
be. Keep that person close. That's
No,
crazy.
it's great because most people, you know them. This is Rachel from New York. I know her
Yes.
here, but to know someone in like so many different parts of their life in
Money
different places,
pocket.
it's like a special friend. Anyhow, we shoot all the time together, and once
Love that.
it was when the painting fruit trend was like really big.
Yep.
Uh,
Yes.
which I literally painted a watermelon last week, and I've looked through my work and I have like 3 instances where I've painted fruits. I'm like, there's something, I have like a fetish.
I have to.
Um, but but yeah, we painted this lemon, I think blue, I
Hmm.
don't know, and then I cleaned the brush in the water,
Yep.
and then we were shooting. I was like, okay, and then I glance over and I see this water glass filled with blue water now. And I was like, oh, I like that. Let's use that. So it
Ugh.
was cool. We photographed with this like half full glass of blue water that was just paint water. And I posted the photo, like, I don't know, however long later.
Mhm.
And I get this really long comment from this person on my Instagram. She's like, oh, I love how you use this as symbolism to do blah, 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 blah. And like, it was this analysis. And
Like,
I'm just thinking, like, I just saw that on the table and was like, that's pretty cool. Um,
isn't that
which,
crazy? But those
I
are
mean,
the happiest mistakes where you're like, this
no,
looks
I mean, it's
so.
good. It means I'm doing my job correctly, you
Absolutely.
know.
You have the vision, you know, it's like even when you don't know, it's just this intuition of, I don't know. That's why when people, I'm
I
sure
mean,
like what you're
if you
saying,
look,
you know
people
you have
always
it.
try to find meaning in beauty.
Always.
Like, if you just make something beautiful, someone's gonna find meaning for it, and then that gives it meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, I focus a lot on that, as opposed to like pouring my heart and soul into something, because I think when I create something, I'm already putting myself in. Like, is any artist, like if you're a writer, you don't have to draw from personal experience. You don't have to do any of this as an artist. I
Yep.
think by creating just in general, you're already doing that. Like, you're already putting your thumbprint there. So if
Absolutely.
you, on top of that, focus on dumping your experience, and then it just becomes like too much. For at least for me, if you want to do that, like
You know
that's
what
your,
though, and you just clicked a lot of stuff in my head because it is interesting. It's almost like you can go with inspiration, you can go with an intent, but if you let it go and just give it to what it's meant to be and how people might take it or interpret it, it almost can become something grander than what you would even imagine because it's based off of somebody going, God, that resonates with me so hard. It's like music. It's, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Where it's
yeah.
like
I mean,
that song might have meant something particular to somebody, but I listen to it and it means something so different, but it still has that impact and it's
mm.
really, really deep. So I love that. I'm like, oh, wait a
No,
moment.
no, it's so true. It's no, my best moments of like you, I feel not worthy in my best moments
Right.
because it's
No.
like I'm not even. It's just like I don't. It's like the psychics who say they're channeling. You know, it's like that, but you're just kind of letting the artwork happen. It just kind of comes out of you, and you don't feel like you're working. It's just there. So
And
I
that's
think it
a hard
feels.
concept for people to understand. I'm sorry, I just cut you off. Half
No,
the feed goes in and out a little bit. Is to just do it, let go, and create. Oh
I mean,
my
it's hard to do because that state of being it.
God.
Obviously, there's a great deal of inspiration and creativity that comes with, but it's based on your experiences and what you've lived, because that's where the I think ideas come from. But then
100%.
also the technical aspect is very important. Like I don't want people like once you know your craft, whatever it
Mhm.
is. For me, photography, you have to know how to work the settings properly, and you have to have that idea in your mind. So when you get struck by whatever, you know immediately how to
Yes.
do it. You're not like pausing and thinking, oh, do I? Because that breaks the whole.
I
You have
know.
to have a solid foundation, which you learn over time, but
Right.
that's
It's
important
almost
too.
like you learn the rules so we can break them later.
Yeah, exactly.
In that
That's
sense.
like such a
Just
cliche,
like
but it's true.
it's so true. Oh, I'm the corniest. Trust me. I'll say every cliche. You'll be like, yes, Rachel,
Well,
all the
sometimes
time.
I make like a little educational series on YouTube, just like basic um,
Oh, we must.
techniques and Photoshop. And it's nothing like super intense because some people they come and they send me messages like this isn't correct, this is wrong. I'm like
You're like
I
art. We are
okay,
artists.
yeah. I mean, maybe if you're taking, like I said, if it's like if I was trying to perfectly light a product, then yes, it's wrong. No one's gonna want to sell with this, but that's not the point. I
That's
thought
what
it's
I'm
cool. So if you
saying.
don't like it, that's all right.
Right.
Calm
But
down.
that's the hardest part too. It's like sometimes I'll even catch myself judging people's work, like almost innately, just as human beings. We're
Mm.
also in such like
Yeah,
a quick on demand, satisfactory, and we're sliding through things. Like I like that, I don't like that. It's very it's
yeah. Hmm.
face value stuff. But I'll be like, oh, I don't like that, I don't like that, and then sometimes I'll sit and I'll be like, who the hell am I to say that I just don't like that? Like maybe it's not my taste, but doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's not done with skill or purpose or a certain technique. I'm like, that just might not be for me. I wouldn't hang it in my house. Maybe I'm not going to whatever, but it, it might be 10,000 other people's like, oh, this is divine. So it's like stepping out of that, realizing too, sometimes we create, it's just like, sometimes it is just for you. Sometimes it's for other people. And there's no, it's like you're saying, there's rules to a fine line, and
Yeah.
then you just kind of let that shit go, which I love. Our relationship though, between you and I as people on set, I like that you mentioned at the beginning, people are kind of looking at the photographers as like the leader on set, which
Hmm.
weirdly enough, I've adapted over the years to also be like, well, he or she is going to be the end all be all. Cause if he doesn't like it, she might scrap it, whatever. As like far as like, oh, change the lighting, change the backdrop, take this makeup off. It's kind of like, in some circumstances when you're
It can
blessed with
be.
a team, it
Yeah.
can be. um when I guess I'm going to be hyper focused on, just because I'm a makeup artist, so I'll speak for
Yeah.
myself, you being the photographer. When we're working together, I mean, I think we've hit on it a decent amount, which is saying that we rather be organic with each other on set But when you're working with somebody that's new, like we'll do a little, like you and I are working on set together and we have a vision, or it's let's say it is just the first time. Is there any sort of process you have, or you just let it fly on set as far as coming in to complete a project? Or does it vary on the project? Would you reach out to me beforehand? Are we going to test anything on set? I've had a variant. There's obviously no black and white answer, because I've had a variant of different photographers that will be like, oh, just show up and we'll play. Or, oh, they'll send me a very detailed, 1-2 step of what they want and how they want me to achieve it and where they want me to hone in on. But it's very different. I don't know if you have something in particular as far as your style or approach to makeup artists, rather.
Yeah, I mean, I like to have a soft focus, I would say, on everything. I don't want it to be just, oh, let's show up and play. And maybe if it's a test shoot, that's cool. Like,
Sure.
I'm always for that. But if like, especially if I have like something in my mind I'm inspired by,
Yep.
I'm not so like dead centered on the makeup has to be this. I definitely want to trust that artist with their creative and how they see things. Definitely want that. But I definitely have like a mood board and something.
It's almost like guidelines, kind of how we're saying, right?
Yeah, just like an aesthetic, and then, play within that. If something doesn't work, we can talk about that on set.
Right.
Sometimes there have been instances where I wanted something like very specific.
Yeah.
That we've chatted about beforehand and like tested. Like I did a project, it's not out yet, so I can't say too much, but it involves crying, like tears. And we had to like logistically plan through, okay, how do we
of course
make that like work so we're not here on set, like, so there was testing, we played with 2 things, but still it was very open and it wasn't like it has to look exactly like this.
Yeah.
Because you never know. It's honestly also a physical thing. You don't know how products work. Like, I have no clue.
Well, I imagine I'm like, yeah, no, me either. I just show up with a kit and I just no.
No. I mean, like some
you
substances you try to mix them. I've seen before, like they try to mix and then it just doesn't.
It doesn't work. Yeah, we might have a vision, or like you said, the model. I might get on set with the model and be like, God, I want to do this, and they're like, absolutely not, no way. You might get an adamant model that's just like, no way in hell you're doing that to me. My hair, my eyebrows, nothing. And then you kind of just have to like be like, all right, well, let me reassess. I was so like here and thought that this would be an option. Now I got to go ahead and reboot.
Oh, I've learned. I've started, like, if anything is going to be possibly weird, I'm like, agent, is this okay? Because I need to know.
Please. And it's so funny because I don't know about you. Sometimes I never obviously pointed or targeting one specific agency, but I've had some in the past with just test shoots, and they'll say that the model's coming a certain way. So again, it's almost like you can always be prepared as you want to be, and then shit can go south real quick, because I thought maybe she'd come with her hair like this, and then it's like they have long hair and all of a sudden they show up their hair here, and I'm like, oh, well, we're okay. It's a completely different thing than what I had even assumed. So it already innately, boom, you're already having to switch up just everything, just because of a whole now different take.
My big thing is I always ask about the nails. That has killed me so many times when I don't ask, and then no one brings like a
remover or any sort of paint or a solid polish. Do you want like a natural?
No, it's just if they're like, sometimes I'm polish is okay. It's easy to remove in post.
Oh, the file.
But I'm more talking about like if it's like jagged or like ripped or I'm like, then in post you're like,
how do I even, especially if it's like they're like here and you're like,
it's a nightmare. It's a
how am I
nightmare.
supposed to? It is though, but it's crazy. So many times makeup artists, and I've learned this because I've shown up on set and they're like, oh, you have to shave his face, and I'm like, oh my God, well, I have to go to the store. I don't have a razor. I'm not prepared for this. I was like, oh my God, that's a part of my job. And over the years, it takes experience. And like you said, things that you did not do well or things that you're like, oop, my bad, to learn later. It's all about learning, being like, that is your job. Nails are my job as well. Makeup is nails. Unless they have a specific nail tech, I still have to have something in my kit to do even just the basic touch up.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. I'm like, wait, I'm a nail tech now. Yeah.
Well, people have different definitions. They think when they think makeup artist, they think hair, makeup. Nails. By the way, hair is different. Like
hair, don't even get me started.
And I think they need to be. I think they need to be 2 people because they need to focus on each thing.
Of course.
At some point,
management. Oh my God, skill set alone.
At some point, it went from hairstylist to hair artist to hairstylist. Sorry, and I think some people are hairstylists, and I'm like, you're a stylist, but other people I work with, I'm like, that is hair art. For sure.
For sure.
So I hate the term hairstylist unless they're just kind of doing
Just like
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. It's like basic do and goes. We're news anchor people. We're doing a corporate shoot. This is easy. I'm going to maintenance you. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I am by no means a hair artist or even style. I said, I'm a maintainer. I can get those
Maintainer.
flyaways. Let me, give her a nice ponytail. My skill sets are so narrow, but I know even, I mean, makeup artists, sadly, as far as my point of the industry, you're forced to have to at the beginning. You got to know all the things because people don't want to hire multiple people. I love that you do. I love that you respect that it's two different crafts and it's, better time wise, even on set and application and accuracy. You want two people doing something specifically that they know what and how to do it. You're going to have a better product at the end of the day. Because if I'm trying to finesse, something's going to lack. Like that hair, the makeup might be flawless, but that hair is just not going to hit the way it would have hit with a true hairstylist.
Yeah, and especially if you're retouching, like I'm very detail oriented, and I'm like, no, I'm not using this image unless this is fixed.
So do you edit all your photos? I mean, when you do it, does you take every shoot or do you ever shoot it off to somebody to edit?
I mean, I've sent it off before if there's money, but typically if it's editorial, typically there's not really a budget for like excessive digital. I'll do it, but I always try to be very aware. I mean, for the sake of the art, but also for me, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't want to sit there for like 2 extra hours because someone didn't do something that took like 1 minute. Seriously, it could be that simple.
Very true though. And that goes for hair, makeup, styling. You're like, please get that wrinkle out. Like, save me all the time in the world on set so later this is not a to-do.
Yeah, I don't. Retouching is fun to a point, but some point, some things are just like, I don't want to do. For example, my biggest pet peeve with society now is gum on the sidewalk.
Stop.
Because you don't notice it until you're there looking at the image, and then there's this like galaxy of stepped on gum. You're like, I have to remove all that now.
It's just brown dots at this point too. Knowing New York, it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's not even fun. It's not like, well, I'm gonna paint.
It's artistic. Yeah. Just straight dirty.
That's enough for me. So if much the wrinkles can be out, that's perfect.
Yes, I'll take that. I love that. I'm so happy. You are such a receptive, open, and you're a breath of fresh air. As far as, I mean, I work with some incredible friends of mine and photographer people that I've worked with. I luckily haven't had too many just crazy experiences or super overbearing experiences. Some, always few and far between though, thank God. But you're very open, very receptive. You have a very deep understanding of kind of why and the how, but in the same time, you're just a free spirit. Like, this is the first time, for people that don't know, I'm never like lying, like we've known each other for years. We haven't even gotten to like personally sit down with each other. And this is such a lovely brush of fresh air, just interview and hearing what you have to say about photography and how you operate. And
no, I don't understand people if you do else. Like, for me, it's so much energy to just like put up who has time for that? And then that's where scandal comes from. Like, you act one way and then it's just nonsense. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna say my mind, and if you don't like it, that's a conversation to have, but I'm not gonna like.
No, it's a lot easier. It's so much, when you say it out loud, it seems way less complicated. It's just like, we're being ourselves, we're being polite, and if we have a problem, we go about it. It's crazy how.
I mean, to be fair though, the industry we work in, it can be a little more petty, and people can take offense. So you do have to be careful. I don't want to offend anyone, on accident, or say something that would put someone off. But I mean, if I'm trying to do something, I think more open communication is good.
Always, which is so appreciated. Because it doesn't always happen. So I'm happy you do that. Is there anything upcoming that we want to know from you or that you got going on? I know, like, we know we're still in COVID, we're in the midst, but anything you're working on that we're looking forward to seeing from you?
I mean, I have a few editorials that have kind of not hit the fan. What's the word? I don't know. It's lagged a little bit because everything is kind of delayed so much. So ideally, I mean, one just got confirmed today, which is great news.
Yay.
That should be out soon. And then there's another one that's kind of in the works. I'm always working on something. I'm very much like, try something, something will stick, But I also, like I said, I've been, especially in the quarantine or whatever, working a lot on the business side. I've started reaching into education a little bit more, just because I mean, most of the photography education courses are kind of the demographic I was talking about before, where it's just like, this is how you set up lighting to make sure like
Right.
that's great. There's a lot of that. If you, it's very saturated, but there's not much of a space for people to view photography as the art that it is. Because I
Yes.
think, especially with the pace of the industry now, everyone wants more and more and more for less.
Oh my God, all the time.
It's kind of been diluted where photographers are just workers,
Doing the
I
bare minimum. They're
suppose.
checking in and out. There's no creativity. There's no, like
Yeah,
you're saying, there's no flex of that. Like let's push this boundary. It's just
yeah. So
not
I'm
there.
really focusing on more the art side of it. I mean, of course, like I said, technicals are important, but
Right.
to an extent, like you need to have the mind to create,
And it's
not
good
just
that
the
I feel
language.
like you're building that not only in your portfolio, but almost in like, your philanthropy as far as how you're shooting and when you're shooting and putting it out there as education. It's something I think we're both, it's a great time in COVID to realize like we can sit, use this time that otherwise we might have been busy on set running around. You wouldn't have the time to be able to sit and kind of dive deep into that. So I'm happy. It's like
No,
a
it's true.
blessing for you
Everyone,
and others that get to sit and really focus.
yeah, everyone who has asked me like, "Oh, how are you staying creative on quarantine?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's like a minor priority for me right now because I know when everything is a little bit more normal. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna exit all of this
Right. Not yet. No full
time.
answers yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'm like, eventually there's gonna be so much time for that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna be running around and not focusing on everything I have been doing now. So I don't know. There's kind of this stigma that you have to be doing your thing all the time, but I think there's room and holistic growth.
You have to. You have to. Like even as a makeup art, I mean, a lot of people have chosen during quarantine to sit and either just build, build, build. And I know some other makeup artists that are like, this is the only time I've ever had to be able to breathe, take up yoga, learn something else about myself, take a moment to build something else for me just as an individual outside of my work. Other people are taking it to jump in and do even more work when they don't have to be technically right now at this moment.
Yeah, I mean everything's connected though. You'll find so many things
Oh my God.
that, like yoga, we said earlier, that ties into my work in a way that you wouldn't even think. I mean, you can grab that from anything.
Yeah.
There's always something that you'll see a parallel in, and then you'll be better for it. So I don't see why not. And it's
Which
good for the
people
soul.
are open to it, it's a really great mindset to have exactly what you're saying. Realize that it is all somehow connected and everything we do can be benefited or pulled into our work, our relationships, our family dynamic, anything. It can kind of all get married
Yeah,
together, which is nice.
I agree.
Oh my goodness, Shane, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me. I really appreciate you coming in with me.
I really had a great time.
Oh my
I always love, I like talking sometimes, but if you see me on the street, I'm probably in all black or something, and you'll think I'm unapproachable. But really, when you
He's
sit down, I'm
approachable,
just like,
everybody. Yeah. Look at this man. Listen to him. It is. I'm thankful for you, and I hope in the near future we get to meet together, potentially work. You were just a whole breath of fresh air, and I really appreciate you coming in.
yes, I've never worked with someone with pink hair before. I think I need to add it to the list.
Now it's a to do. I'll
You'll
make
have
sure
the
I
first
keep it for when
option.
it
Yeah.
comes up. Yeah. Thank you again, Shane. Guys, follow him. We're going to be listing all his things below so you guys can keep up with him, his latest projects, all his to-dos, and what he has going on. Thank you again, and continue to tune in for the next episode, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.